Doug is back to fire off some takes, and we let him do so. Plus, we talk about trade value and, of course, the idea if the Charlotte Hornets do nothing. We'll get to all of that today on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You're Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's the Locked On Hornets podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com/promo code Locked On. Not /promo code, just promo code Locked On. Doug is back. He's got the honeycomb scarf on. He's standing up. You can catch him Every Hornets Boxscore.com. That's his substack. You can go check that out. This is what happens when you miss time, is that, and it doesn't matter if it's a segment. It doesn't matter if it's a whole show. God forbid you miss multiple shows. You're going to come back firing. You have thoughts, you have takes, and that is why you see the first bullet point there is Doug Ranson, because I look in the rundown today, and you need to get this off your chest. You have something to say about this. You have something to say about that. And I'm not surprised at all. This is how you operate, Doug. You need to have some kind of ventilation system for you. And this is what you need. You need to vent. And this is what you have right now in the podcast. And so the whole first segment is going to be dedicated to you.
Well, this show keeps my marriage alive because this is where I come to rant, and then I don't take that home with me. So thank you. And I'm sure producer Katie thanks you as well for enduring what you're about to endure, because I did something, Walker, that I rarely do when I'm out. And that's listen to the show. I actually listened to the show that you and David did. And you talked about LaMelo Ball getting clubbed in the head, getting fouled time after time, and not getting a call that he deserves, but is not getting the call. And you went through a lot. You had a lot of great context. You talked about all of the issues from all of the angles, and you talked about the referees, and you talked about LaMelo Ball. But I think we're missing one person in this conversation. Would you like to take a guess at who that person is?
Is it me? Is it somehow my fault that LaMelo's not getting any calls?
Yes.
That's what my guess is going to be.
Well, yes, it's because you criticized his shooting early on, and now the basketball gods are punishing you for criticizing LaMelo Ball.
Very early on. Yes. Yeah. Yes, very early on.
No, it's Steve Clifford. Because, Walker, I waited till the end of that game, and I saw all the things that happened, all the unfair things that were happening to LaMelo Ball. And I was just waiting for Steve Clifford to, open up the wallet for once. Open up the wallet and say something. Get something on the record that his star player is being mistreated by these officials. And it needs to stop before LaMelo Ball gets injured again. And I didn't hear it. There was nothing. Maybe it wasn't asked. I don't know. I didn't hear it. And, I think it's time for the coach to stand up and say, hey, protect my guy out there. He's getting killed.
Oh, well, Doug, he might only have one season, though. That contract is not as lengthy as the other contracts he signed in his life. So this is a money play, and I don't mind it one bit if Steve Clifford wants to hold on to every single one of those pennies he's earning this year, because he might not earn much more.
Steve Clifford's doing just fine, I feel like. I think he could afford one. He doesn't do it very often. How many times in the history of Steve Clifford and Charlotte have we heard him, really criticize the officials in such a way that he would be fine? I'm sure there was one time, but I can't think of like multiple times right off the dome. Wouldn't this be the one time that you would want to do it with your star player getting absolutely manhandled by the Milwaukee Bucks and not getting a call?
Well, we actually heard him not do enough to be fined, but we actually heard his frustration with the refs against the Hawks after that game. And to be fair, if you are a Hornets fan, you only have a couple of coaches to choose from and try to remember if they got fined because of their disappointment in the refs. You have Steve Clifford this time, you have James Borrego, and then you have Steve Clifford the last time he was here, and then you have to go back even further. And so I to be honest with you, I can't remember a time specifically about Borrego doing that. I'm sure there is as well, but you're right. Yes, Steve Clifford would have been nice to have Clifford come in and say, you know what, that's inexcusable from the refs. And maybe you're right, Doug, honestly, with the Borrego thing. I think maybe he got frustrated in that Hawks playoff game. I mean, I think we criticized Borrego for it because we're like, there were many things you could do. Maybe I'm misremembering that. But yes, I hear you. I'm just glad it's not my fault, to be honest with you.
Well, and look, we know that Steve Clifford is not afraid to tell the refs what he thinks during the game. You can hear that on the microphones, especially at a half empty, Spectrum Center game. Mm-hmm. Like I really, it is, I often talk about how like sitting too close to the court can be cool, but also a detriment because the viewing angles stink. But the hearing angles when you sit close are great because you hear Clifford just absolutely eviscerate the referees. And he's just really not afraid to tell. And he's gotten technicals this season. But I'm saying there's a difference between that and then going out and getting it on the record, on the media. Hey, my guy is being mistreated out there. It's got to stop. There is a level of pressure that I think will move through the league if that kind of thing starts to happen. And you don't have to do it every game. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like one time come out and say, hey, and this was the game because I thought particularly this game, he got really handled. And also Giannis, like get out of here, Giannis. What are you doing clubbing guys? And that, like you're a superstar. I think superstars should like respect other superstars, especially in a game you're going to win. Like that game, I know it got close at the end, but with Chris Middleton, he was back and he was doing everything that he should have been able to do in that previous game when the Hornets won. Like this game was not in doubt. And Giannis, come on, like ease up. You're going to go on and compete for a championship. Leave us something instead of trying to take out our guy. Come on.
There's a lot of old heads that hate you for that because that's exactly what's wrong with the NBA, that the superstars are all friends and that they should take it easy on each other. No, they want to be cutthroat. They want their superstars to be cutthroat, and they love Giannis for it.
Well, here's the thing. That's fine in a league where that's accepted and expected, that would be fine. Okay, if that's how everybody played and it was the 90s and it's Knicks and Bulls and Heat, everybody hates each other, wants to get in fist fights on the court, that's fine. I just watched this UNC Pitt game, like one of the first college basketball games I've watched first half through the second half in a long time, and that thing was a brawl. It was crazy. Like the college game is so, like, if you love 90s basketball, just watch the college games. Low scoring.
That one was a little different. There's bad blood there for sure, but you're right.
It's crazy.
You got some physicality in that one.
Yeah, it's nuts. So look, if that's the way the game was played now, then fine. But it's not, and you don't expect it. And also, like, I just think there's a level of stars understanding other stars, and again, not clubbing guys in the head. I mean, you gotta protect the dome.
All right, last rant from Doug Ranson here today. You want to have also a word with the NBA All-Star Illuminati, as well as you wanted to talk about Mark Williams' Rising Stars Challenge snub. So go off on Mark Williams and the Illuminati.
Look, no one on this show understands the level of like young big play that we have in this league. And the level of young big play that the Hornets passed up when they had opportunities to take Walker Kessler, when they had opportunities to take my guy, Jalen Duren. But I'm happy with the way that Mark Williams has played. I'm thrilled with the way he's played this year. I understand the small sample size, but this isn't an actual all-star bid. We're talking about the Rising Stars Challenge. And I don't think you can watch the small sample size that we have of Mark Williams and not say, hey, this guy really has the potential to be a rising star in this league. And so, I don't know if there's like a roster size limit, but I just really feel like if you're a lottery pick or right outside the lottery, like let's say top 15, you really need an excuse not to play you. Like we need to look at your game and either you don't play at all or you do play and you stink. Those are the two things. But Mark Williams did play a little bit, and he doesn't stink. So he should be in the Rising Stars Challenge. There should be more players, not less players, when it comes to the Rising. Oh, jeez. I'm getting so heated. I knocked my keyboard out of the way. Anyway, that's it. I'm good now. Thank you.
You're good.
Mark Williams should be in the Rising
right.
Stars Challenge.
Yeah, there you go. All right, that's Doug Ranson. We'll just go down to a normal level of Doug Branson coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
I won't destroy my computer equipment.
Yeah, please don't do that. We rely on that heavily for the production value of the show. But instead of the production value, let's talk about the trade rental value. What do we think you could get on the market for Kelly Oubre, who is not going into who is actually on a contract year, I should say, and is not locked in. And same thing with Mason Plumlee. What would you get for both of those guys on the trade market? We'll get to that in just a moment, but not before I talk about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is a fantastic app, and here's how it works. You can pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available, and PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you watch: the NBA, the NFL, the MLB, college men's and women's basketball, college football when it's in season, soccer, the WNBA. Saw the Liberty make a huge move yesterday, NASCAR, tennis, Euro basketball, cricket. All right, I'm done, but PrizePicks is not. There's still plenty of other sports that you could choose from. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. You have safe and fast withdrawals, and they're currently operational in over 30 states and even Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, PrizePicks gives you 100. If you deposit 50, PrizePicks gives you 50. You get the idea. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Trade rental value coming up next on Locked On Hornets.
Is Locked On Hornets.
But I have seen him go all the way up to number 10. That was. Is there a warning? Do we need to get out of here?
Okay, here's the thing. I don't know if you heard, but my watch went off, and I was trying to silence it, and then I accidentally hit ping the phone, and then the phone pinged, and now here we are. I'm doing my best, man.
It seems like you're doing your very worst.
Well, sometimes
it seems like I'm actively fighting you today to move.
Sometimes my best is my worst.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
All right, Doug. Sam Vecenie of The Athletic wrote a little trade value piece on The Athletic about a bunch of different teams. Toronto, OG Anunoby is one of the biggest names out there that could be had possibly. So started off the article with that. But also included is the Charlotte Hornets and a couple of rental players that they have on their roster right now. So among them, you have Kelly Oubre, who's 27 years old. Yep. And we still don't know when he would come back. We do know that he's not going to come back before the trade deadline. We did see, I believe, a video from Rod Boone of Kelly shooting, warming up, but not with his left hand. So he's only shooting with his right hand, not really using that left hand right now, which is key. Yep, that's what Rod said, I believe, in the tweet. And then Mason Plumlee, 32 years old. He's also on a contract year. So we'll see exactly, what you could get from Mason Plumlee. PJ Washington, also interesting. Maybe we can get to him at the end. But Sam Vecenie wrote about Mason Plumlee first. Let's start there, Doug. And while Matt Moore, he put out there earlier this week that maybe the Hornets would be looking for a first-round pick in exchange for Mason Plumlee, you and I both thought that would be far-fetched. Even if he's playing well, I just don't see a team giving up a first-round pick, and really neither does Sam. So he was talking about Mason being an underrated player, at least on some kind of national level. But really, you're probably looking at getting multiple second-round picks from Mason. That is probably the price that you would pull the trigger on a potential trade. Do you agree? Multiple second-round picks with whatever buffering you want to have on either side of that?
Yeah, I think ironically, if Mason Plumlee made more money, then he would probably garner that first round pick. And not like, I'm not talking about like Russell Westbrook, $40 million money. But if you were talking about bringing Mason Plumlee and all of the skills that he has displayed in terms of handling the basketball, passing the basketball, he's one of the best passing bigs that we have in the league right now, which is crazy to say, but it's not true. And he's also shown an ability to raise his scoring game as well. So you package all that. But if he were making like $20 million, then it's like, okay, I get to clear some books. I get to use whatever I can from Mason to make this playoff run, and then we get to reset with that amount of money. Then it would be different. But I think at the level he is now, it's a little tough to make that first round argument. I think multiple seconds makes a lot more sense, but I would be pushing that first round right up until the last couple of seconds of the deadline and hold one of those other deals, in my hand, ready to pull the trigger right before. Just keep putting the foot on the gas and seeing what you can get out of all these guys.
Well, and then lastly, Sam does kind of put out the idea of Charlotte and Plumlee extending that contract for one more year at around the 8 to 10 million mark before trading him. And so I don't know if you're a team that you would want another year on that deal or if you would want it to be expiring, right? Because that's a tough one where you talk about the varying values of the contract. If you were to go, let's call a sweet spot something like 15 million, right? Because 20 is still a lot at the end of the day. But when you talk about, say, 15 million for Mason, that would be a little more valuable on an expiring. So you could sweeten the deals on whatever kind of trade you're trying to make. A lot of money comes off of the books. But if you're talking about him having one more year left, right, and then it's only 8 to 10, then that actually makes it more attractive if you want Mason to be a depth piece going forward. It would help because now you're not giving up second round picks for somebody that is probably going to leave the franchise anyway, or at least has a very real possibility of leaving the franchise. So some interesting chess moves to make regarding Mason Plumlee.
Yeah, it doesn't kill you to keep him, right? Especially if you believe that Mark Williams, and I believe this, that he's going to be ready to start sooner rather than later. Could start right now. Now it's going to hurt Mark in terms of his ability to play for the rest of the season unless they make that call and say, all right, we're going to keep Mason, but now Mason, hey, you got to take a seat or go to the bench because we really want to start Mark. They certainly can do that. But then next season, if you think Mark's going to be ready to start, then you got Mark. Maybe you have Wemby. You got enough size on the floor at that point. And then Mason can be the quality backup center that he is. That's what all of these people are writing about, and it's what you and I have been saying for a long time and seeing it on a regular basis, that there's nothing wrong with Mason Plumlee. It's that he's miscast right now as a starting center, miscast in terms of what this team has wanted to achieve, which is playoff success. He's not the starting big on a team that can win a first-round series or a second-round series or so on. So, yeah, I mean, I think, but a rental makes sense for a lot of teams. Keeping Mason Plumlee for the Hornets, if they can get him at that number for another season, because he makes your team better. I mean, when you play him next season with some of these young guys, as you shift into more of a rebuilding mode, like he can make other guys look good, and there's a value in that.
Well, yeah, and just to be clear, Sam was talking about that before trading him. So you would extend him before trading him instead of the idea of keeping him even just another year in order to make that trade value more, right? Because of the whole, if you rent him, then he's gone this offseason, you gave up a couple picks, or you give up a couple picks and then you have control over it. So that's just what Sam was thinking. I get that, honestly, but doesn't seem like you do as much.
Well, because I think that both Mason Plumlee and Kelly, if they were traded to the right situations, see, I separate the rental idea into two groups. There's the rental that you're not really sure, or you are sure that they're not coming back, that they're going to move to greener pastures. And then there's the rental situation where you go, no, actually, we got a puncher's chance at keeping this player. And I think that both Mason Plumlee, if Mason Plumlee finds a good playoff situation where he can get solid minutes as a backup, now if he's traded somewhere where he's third on the depth chart, yeah, you're going to lose him. But you would want to lose that player anyway at that number. So, but if he's in a good situation, Kelly too. Like I thought Kelly was just going to have 1 year here and move to a playoff situation, but he obviously values whether you're a playoff team or not. He values good coaching. And he values a good situation where he can utilize his skills in the best way possible. And I just think those are the kind of players that you can rent and be confident that you can make them a good pitch to stay. So I disagree with Sam there. I don't think that extending him makes any sense until you're sure you want to keep him into next season.
So let's get to Kelly Oubre then. Kelly Oubre also contract season, right? I mean, it was non-guaranteed coming into the year, and now you don't know what his contract is going to look like. They got to negotiate that with whatever team ends up getting him. But Kelly Oubre has ligament damage in his left hand, and it's been 4 weeks now. Had an impressive scoring run. Certainly the best stretch of basketball we've seen from Kelly is the first half of last year. And then in the first half of this year, maybe a little bit more consistent in the way he played. I don't know if the shot was dropping at a more consistent level, but I did like there was a different style in the way that he was going out there on the court. But we know that Kelly Oubre, he's helping you as a scorer. And I know defensively, He was leading to more deflections this year. That was different than the year prior. And so deflections, I thought that mattered. I still don't look at Kelly as some lockdown defender, but the deflections were there. And so that was something that could raise his value here. Mostly, Kelly Oubre is helping you as a scorer. You're not trading him for his deflection rate. You're trading for him because of his ability to score off of the bench. And if he has ligament damage in his hand and you're only getting him on a rental, a shorter one than you'd get with Mason, by the way, because if the deadline's the 9th and he's not going to be ready to come back right then and there, plus you have the whole Russ thing, this one's going to be hard. Like, and I know, Kelly, you might value him more, but for what? Are you willing to give up something of value for, I mean, how many games did you get from Kelly? Do you want to call it 25? I don't know. So that one's going to be harder to me, in my opinion, Doug.
Well, it's going to be a team that needs one more shooter for a playoff run, right? I mean, it's not about the games that you're going to get for the rest of the regular season run. It really is like a team that's confident. Hey, we're going to make the playoffs. We're going to make a deep run. We can utilize this guy's shooting. We either need one more shooter or we just have zero shooting. And anything that we could get from Kelly Oubre, and I know the shooting numbers haven't been great, and you got to worry about the hand. All of that's going to affect the value, but there is a body of evidence that says that Tsunami Papi does still exist somewhere deep down inside of him. He's had to turn into Tsunami Father for this team's sake because they've had so many injuries. You know, he had to put his head down and go to the cup. But I think there is a alternate universe where the Hornets stayed completely healthy and Kelly never did that. And he was the same Kelly that he was last season, which is also super valuable. The Hornets aren't shooting. They can get into situations where they don't shoot a lot of threes. Now, they did against Milwaukee because Milwaukee sits all the way back and lets you shoot as many threes as you want, especially against teams that don't shoot it particularly well like the Hornets. But take tonight's game against Chicago. Chicago does not let you shoot threes. They didn't in that previous matchup, and the Hornets didn't shoot a ton there, and they weren't shooting it well. So, you know, that's been a sort of key difference in the offense between this season and last season, is that their key three-point shooters either have changed their games to accommodate the injuries or have been injured. And so we've seen less threes and less made threes. So a team's going to value that. It's just the value. Yeah, you're right. The value is going to be depressed.
Well, the injury sucks for Kelly, for all parties here, because if he didn't get injured, let's just say he continues the same level of production, not anything higher, not anything lower, just same level of production, then even that could allow you to do something. But you're talking about ligament damage on your shooting hand, and that's how you make your money in this league. That's tough for the Hornets, it's tough for Kelly, and it's tough for anybody that saw it after Kelly at the trade deadline.
Just really quick, do you envision Kelly Oubre in a Hornets uniform next season?
No, I don't. I don't
either.
Yeah. So, and we'll see whether that comes with something in return or not. We'll discuss it coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Have you ever considered this, Doug? I don't know if you've ever talked about this before, though. Have you considered the Hornets maybe doing nothing? Have you thought about that?
Oh, no!
We're going to get to it in just a moment, but not before we talk about FanDuel. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and this year the only app you need at your Super Bowl party, I've done that twice now, is FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On because they're the #1 sports book in America. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. You can download FanDuel now so you can bet Super Bowl 57 with a no-sweat first bet. You'll get up to $3,000 back in bonus bets. Yes, $3,000 if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel lets you bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to who will score a touchdown. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, it's secure, it's super easy to use, and best of all, you can get paid your winnings instantly. So join FanDuel today at FanDuel.com/lockedon to claim your no-sweat first bet on Super Bowl 57. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. One more segment to go on Locked On Hornets.
Is Locked On Hornets.
Mitch Kupchak, will he do the thing that he has not done in season this entire
anything
time?
The thing that he has not done
it
is anything.
Comes back to do something.
Just do one thing.
You need to get a stick from outside and become the meme in person because it always comes back to do something.
Do something.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Doug, I think that's your do something shirt. You wear it anytime we're going to have
the same shirt
this
as I was in that bump.
Locked On. It's a good one, right? I mean, you wear Nike with just do it, and you wear Locked On with do something. That's our motto on this podcast. We're altering it just a little bit.
In my life philosophies, I don't spend a ton of money on clothes. I take that money and I spend it on fancy tech for the show. But we're on YouTube now. I might have to consult. I do the hats, obviously, but the t-shirts, I haven't bought a lot of t-shirts, so I just rotate these t-shirts in and out. But might have to invest in a little maybe some Locked On Hornets gear. Maybe make some official gear for the show.
That would be cool, man. I know you used to have it, right? This is before I came around that you had some Locked On t-shirts out there and some Locked On apparel.
And there are rules around this stuff with the network. Like, we can't make a bunch of stuff and sell it as much as I'd love to. We can make some. We could make some Stangin' or Clangin' shirts. We could do some stuff around the branding of the show that's outside of Locked On Hornets. So if you let us know in the comments what kind of t-shirts you might be interested in, and I might whip something up in Photoshop or something. Do a little Stangin' or Clangin' shirt. That'd be cool.
What's great about this too, just looking at the business model for this, is you're going to come up with a saying every show, and it's a great business model. We're just going to come up with something like Stangin' or Clangin', Stangin'. We're going to come up with something like that, and when I say we, I mean you. And then we're just going to put it on a t-shirt and sell it. And you know what? I would love to get some of the profit and doing zero of the work, making the t-shirt, coming up with the phrase, none of that. So is this going to be the creative difference that leads to the podcast breaking up like so many great bands before us?
That's right. I need to mass market the Big Dub hat too. Let's see if I can get a little overseas manufacturing of Big Dub hats and get them to our, hundreds of fans.
That's fantastic. Yes, the 100. There are dozens of us wearing the Big Dub hats.
I want to see dozens of us.
I want to see Charlotte filled with antenna all over the place, just going around the city of Charlotte. It's a Big Dub hat. See that win against the Rockets? It was awesome, man. Came down to the wire, baby. Thought it'd be Big Dub hat time. And yeah, I can't wait for us to bring that out again. Although we'll see, more wins might mean worse odds for the Victor Wembanyama, Scoot Henderson, and we'll see if they're able to stack them up. And Doug, right now, you've talked about taking the keys away from Steve Clifford. The way you do that is by taking the players away from Steve Clifford. So Mason Plumlee playing well, take him away. Kelly Oubre coming back. You don't want any of those nuclear 7 3-point quarter games where he shoots 40 points and is able to go crazy. Take him away. Just don't even allow that opportunity to happen. That is the way to do it. But we also know that Mitch Kupchak has not been a big trade guy here in Charlotte. He was with the Lakers, huge deal maker. So we talked about a lot, but not here with the Charlotte Hornets. We've seen the Montrezl Harrell trade. Yes, the first in-season move that he made via trade was going after Brad Wanamaker for cash considerations. I haven't looked up his stats. Brad Wanamaker was the guy that led us to his in-season moves, and that's it. So, Doug, what happens if the Hornets actually do nothing once again?
I don't know that anything happens, except they probably win a few more basketball games and take themselves out of contention. I think that's going to happen. Like, if you look at the schedule, they eventually get Kelly Oubre back. Clifford wants to win. Now, is there a scenario where they don't do anything and then somebody comes down from the front office and says, hey, Steve, let's start playing Nick Richards. Let's not play Mason Plumlee anymore. Let's play Book Knight instead of Kelly Oubre. Sure. What does that do to Clifford's future in Charlotte? I think that would be the question there, because we know he wasn't too thrilled to be part of a rebuild. Part of what attracted him back to this job was that it didn't seem like the organization was heading in that direction. It seemed like they were, no, we're going to take these pieces that we have and try to make a run at this thing. And obviously fate got in the way there with the injuries. But how does Clifford take that? Do they lose Clifford to save the team, to save their lottery odds? But yeah, if you look at the schedule, they've got more home games than road games. They're done with the big road stretches. They're done with these like grueling, stretches of weeks where you're playing, game, then day off, game, then day off, game, then day off, and back-to-backs. Like, all of that's really out of the way. I don't know strength of schedule-wise where they sit, but I know, coming up they've got the Bulls, and then they've got back-to-back games against Detroit and Orlando, and then they follow that up with the Wizards, who are playing better, but still a team that they can beat. And we know too, Walker, that like as you get into February and March and teams are getting into playoff positioning, we know that teams are going to rest, and they tend to rest on the road, which would be a home game for the Hornets, which they have more of. They would tend to rest on the road against inferior teams like the Hornets. And a healthy Hornets team is not going, their performance won't be indicative of their record. They're going to sneak up on teams, and they're going to win if they play everybody. So yeah, I'm really scared about what that means.
Yeah, if they win more games, then that's eventually going to hurt you. Like, look, the way that it helps is by not having this team lay down, and you don't have this losing mentality going into next season. That's valuable, right? It's only so valuable, but it is valuable. I don't think that being in a position where you're bottom four, where you already have demonstrated an ability to get some wins this season, I'm going to take a guess and say, if PJ is a part of the future, he's not going to be devastated enough to where it affects him. I don't think it's going to affect LaMelo Ball. So I would like to still have enough losses to have a pretty damn good shot at one Victor Wembanyama. There is a positive way to spin this, though, Doug, just real quickly. And it's the one that scares you if Mitch Kupchak and his staff gets to it. It's the fact that if they say, wait a minute, maybe we trade the rentals. Maybe we trade Kelly Oubre and we trade Mason Plumlee, and we get something in return for those guys. And then we think we're going to lose a lot more anyway. Maybe Gordon Hayward gets hurt again. Certainly not going to put that past Gordon Hayward. And so you end up losing a lot. You still have a 14% chance at getting that number one overall selection. We end up getting one of those two guys. And then if you want to settle for third, that's fine. And now they come into a situation where you have LaMelo, you have PJ, you have Terry, you have Gordon, and we just have a lot more veterans than a lot of the other tanking teams. And so that is the positive way. If you think you can lose enough, that is the positive way to spin it. And here we are talking about them really having not done a whole lot, even after that scenario.
Well, and then Gordon's contract looks a lot better, so you could spin that into maybe bringing some veterans back who have some championship experience, that have some playoff experience, that you could infuse into some of these young players. That Gordon, even if he had it doesn't feel like he wants to share it. Like, he's just not a guy who's going to go in and like really get in with this group. He does all of his work on the court. So yeah, I mean, if this draft didn't feature two players that nearly everyone is unanimous in saying these are, one is an obvious like generational player franchise, and the other, Scoot, is going to be an elite player in this league. Like, there just doesn't seem to be any doubt. If that weren't the case, then you and I think would be having a different conversation about like the value of winning and the value of instilling that culture. And you want to help players grow by playing well. And if you don't play well, I mean, I can list off examples. Sacramento, which is eventually getting it figured out, but it took them, it's taken them like 2 decades.
Yeah, there are awful
Orlando,
examples, right? Like,
Orlando's still figuring it out. So, you don't want to be in those situations. But look, this is a generational draft. I think you got to take that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we'll see how it all shakes on February 9th. All right, we have one more show to end the week, and then it will be trade deadline week. We'll have you set all across the board for that here on Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube, so check us out. Get that subscriber list up. Also, smash that like, but we don't do that as much. I was watching one the other day. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, make sure you press that bell so you know we dropped that video. You can still do that.
God.
What are you doing? I just hit all the cliches.
You're just a regular YouTuber.
Oh yeah, baby. That's me. Now, after you make us your first listen, make sure you also check out Game to Game NBA. They have you covered on every game across the association, a part of Locked On NBA. So again, check that out anywhere you get your pods. And you can also check that out, I believe, on YouTube as well. All right. Thanks for making us your first listen, and have a great rest of your day.